So once again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on our Mylio Photos coffee break. Today we're going to be talking about copyright and IPTC metadata. And it looks like Rich already has his screen shared. So Rich, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking some time. Rich is on our product team. He's also an avid photographer and educator. So really lucky to have him with us today. You want to go ahead and jump into whatever you have planned here since you've got your screen up?
Sure. Sorry, it's been one of those days of moving fast. So I'm happy to, we could take any questions you guys have along the way. I want to show you how you could add extra information to your photos, as well as how you can control what information is included when you share or export your photos. So we'll cover that one, and it should be straightforward. Angela, if you do me a favor, there we go. Yeah, we had one wild mic with some audio, but it looks like
I was just looking for it. It looks like Fran got hers muted before I could do it for us. So thank you, Fran.
So Mylio and metadata is pretty straightforward. Mylio follows XMP metadata pretty strictly. There are newer XMP fields that Mylio is thinking about expanding and adding in the future, but we follow all the core ones pretty straightforward. So you might be familiar as you're looking at different pieces of information and your pictures of what happens with those pictures. So as you start to look at photos, for example, you might see information that gets added. So for example, let me go here. So here I've got a handful of pictures that I had processed a long time ago, 2007, right? Early in my digital photography career, not the beginning of it, but relatively early on. And let's just say that 15 years later, I have a different approach to image organization than I did 15 years ago. I have a new appreciation as my brain ages of how hard it is to find my stuff if it's not organized. And what we were just talking about, Margaret, like, wow, it's really annoying when this information I put into the files isn't in my files. Where is it? Like, it screws things up. So let's talk about copyright and other information that you can add to your pictures. And it doesn't have to just be copyright. There's all sorts of things you can put in there. So when you look at a picture, you'll see that there's an IPTC area here, and there's a bunch of stuff, right? So we have this creator copyright this. Now, if that's not in your Mylio, one of the things that I was brought on the team to help with as a photo educator and a sort of a subject matter expert about many different software apps is to make Mylio less confusing and more useful. And so that comes down to three things: coming up with new useful tools, looking at complaints or support tickets where people get stuck. So, and also just evaluating the app for things that are hard to find. So one of the things we're actually in the middle of doing right now is cleaning up the settings menu so that it's better organized. I'm showing you the old one, but like, for example, you go to find some sync controls, but the control to see the sync panel is over here, not over here. Or you're looking for, well, where is that versus this? And you struggle to figure out where things are. And then there's these awful generic name things like advanced, where you don't really know. Or that there was a scroll bar here to scroll down. So at the very bottom of the very last menu is the IPTC stuff that's off by default. These are other things we fixed. But if you go under advanced, you'll see IPTC info, and you can open that up. This is where you can decide what you want. So if you turn off use extended IPTC, well, then those fields disappear. If you're like, I don't have a place where I could put my copyright info in or my website, it's because it was turned off. So again, under the settings and advanced, scroll to the bottom and IPTC info, and you turn it on. That gives you more metadata fields. So I'll speak frankly about Mylio Photos and say that Mylio Photos has an interesting combination of super friendly, consumer-oriented approaches to things with really deep technical things at the same time. And this is one of those examples where someone said, oh, man, all these extra fields and text, it's kind of confusing and cluttered. Let's clean some of that up. So they hid those by default, even though they're probably useful to most people. Just like the sync panel used to be off by default. And then I said, guys, turn the sync panel on. No, no, it's cluttered. I'm like, trust me, everyone feels better, even if they don't know what all these things are, when they see that the green lights and things are moving and that the numbers are going down and things are backed up. It just makes you feel better. And eventually you figure out what they all are by reading the help manual that Angela helped write, or you click on something, you figure it out. So this is one of those things where, like, yes, it's cluttered, but if you care about it, turn it on. So this allows you to go in and load your information, and you decide what you put in here. So if you don't want to list your address, don't. Like, I'm listing my work address, which is fine, because if people want to hire me as a photographer, I don't mind that. Or you just clear that out, right? So you can go in and fill these in and put the information in that you want. So if you only want to list your country and your name, you can. If you want to put your phone number, you can. This is whether or not you want to be contacted. Okay, so you decide what goes in here. You also could assign a copyright. So you can go in here and assign a name to copyright your photos and a credit. So that could be two different things. Copyright could be the client you shot for. If you were doing work for hire, it could be you or the name of your company. Credit could be your name. You can also decide to include, when it says copyright info URL, that's your website. So if you just want people who find your pictures online to know how to get in touch with you, you can put this. Now, some people who are professional to semi-professional photographers would like to get paid when their pictures get used. So this will vary by country. The getting paid varies everywhere, but whether or not how copyright works. But just by assigning your name and providing contact information, you are reducing the ability for people to say, but I had no idea this picture belonged to somebody else that I found on the internet and randomly used. So providing, if you have any business interest in your photographs, or even if you just want to receive proper credit for your photography and you don't mind if people use it, you could do that. So like under special instructions, if you are familiar with things like Creative Commons, or you just want to say free to use with attribution, that means, like, go ahead and use my pictures, but I would like you to credit me by name and give me credit for being the photographer. You know, that's what we call moral rights, where you get credit for the work that's yours, versus copyright, where you want to enforce who can and can't use your picture. So Angela, does that make sense to you? Like, I mean, you probably assigned some different types of rights to some of your pictures, and you want at least to get credit most of the time, I assume.
Absolutely. So I usually do an all rights reserved, but I was, part of that right is if somebody contacts me and I look at it and I go, you know what, they want to, so I'll give an example. I had a candle company that works on the Outer Banks in North Carolina. They had seen one of my photos of a lighthouse and wanted to use it on the label of one of their candles. And I said, I would, that's great. Go ahead. I'm like, I would love to see it. And they actually sent me a candle. And I feel like that was, really nicely done. I could have asked for money, but in that instance, I was like, you know what, they're a really small business. They're just looking for a cool graphic. And I decided, let them use it. I'm not going to charge a fee. So it's really up to you, but I keep the all rights reserved. So I have my options open. So if it's a big commercial interest, I can be like, yeah, you need to pay for that.
Yeah. And there's lots of different benefits here. So whether you just want people to know how to get in touch with you, or you want to make sure that this info is there. And remember, you can control whether or not this info is included on export. So this is where you fill it in. And this is called an IPTC card. It's basically like a photographer's business card. So you might be like, what does IPTC mean? It's the International Press something or other consortium. And it's basically
Communications Committee or something like that.
Yeah.
It's in the manual.
Yes. And it's one of those many things that I know in the back of my brain that get forgotten when my son asks me random trivia questions that just replace other parts of my brain at this point in life. I'm convinced we have a limited amount of memory cells for non-essential information. And so as other non-essential information comes in, stuff gets pushed out. So that might just be me. But you load all that stuff up and you have it. Or your camera might already have an IPTC card. So Mylio lets you load a new one if you've already got one. And And in the future, we might expand this to have multiple ones in here. Like if you share a Mylio account or you have personal photos that you want one set of information on versus work photos, you can do that. All right. So now that I have that and it's in there, I get the ability, if I want to select all of these things, and I could click Apply IPTC card. And it says, okay, you've got 13 files selected. Do you want to do it? Yes. Look, it applied my name, my country, the name of my company, and the contact info. If I had listed the URL, it would have the URL. Now, what I want you to know is that this is not going to globally update. So for example, if I go in here and I change this and I add my URL, right? And I go ahead and save that, it doesn't just dynamically update everything. This is not a live link. So that's good because it means that you could change things over time or if your website changed. But it does mean that if you need to, you would restamp your files if you needed to add extra info. So before I go to the next step of this, everybody hopefully understands the ability to add information with IPTC and that you can make a preloaded template with the contact information you want to share. So are there any questions about that before we show you a little bit more about metadata? You're on mute, I think, Fran.
I'm just wondering if you've got photos in your album that have been done by other people, and you in Lightroom you've got copyrighted them.
Yep.
And if you have in Mylio, you bring in this copyright thing, and you wanted to make sure all of your images, my images, are copyrighted. Would it overwrite the ones from Lightroom?
You can overwrite data. This is editable. So there's certain fields and files that are locked and other ones that are unlocked. So this is not a locked field because it wasn't generated by the camera. Like you can't change you can technically time shift the stamps, but that's like an adjusted field. But like you can't go in and say, oh, this wasn't shot on a 2.8 lens. It was a 8.7. Like that's hard coded into the metadata of the file. So there's certain things that are truly locked, and then there's others that are fully editable. And so, yes, you could overwrite someone else's copyright if that was in your photos, or if you change the name of your company or anything else, you might find yourself making changes like that. Mylio does have really powerful search and filter tools that are a little confusing to use because they're often text-based, but you can search for things like that. I see JC's here with us. I know, Angela, you've got a whole chapter in the manual about search. There's a lot of different criteria that are searchable. I suspect that you could search on some of those fields and filter images that have a copyright assigned or not. I don't know the string off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you post it to our forum, one of the people who are super into that will know. I will also say for those of you who find the ability to do these custom searches and filters really useful, but don't know how to write code, we're building a graphic user interface for that right now so that you'll be able to do super advanced searches, not just use these buttons, but more. But by the way, remember, you can do really cool things here, like filter by camera type or filter by other settings. Or you can go into your dashboard and say, oh, you know what? It's not all my pictures, but all the pictures that I want to tag this way, like the pictures, like let's say you had a drone and you did aerial photography and you had a business about aerial photography and you wanted to put that business's name on. You can go under dashboard, library stats, and see all your cameras or see all your lenses. And when you come over here and I say, oh, let me go right to, and you just find that, right? So DJI, show me all the things that we shot on a DJI camera here. Here we go, boom. And it's going to take me right to all of those things captured that way. So when you click it, it invokes the search, and there's everything that this came from. Actually, this is from an Osmo, which is both a drone camera and a car mountable camera. So here's a bunch of time lapses I did while on the road. Well, this was done for a video production company. So by sorting by camera, it made it easier to find things for certain types of projects. So you can do cool things like that. A lot of people don't know that the stats are here where you can name those that way. So that lets you go right to something and find it right away based on camera type. So does that make sense? Cool. So let's show what happens when you go to export. So if you've got metadata on files, you can decide what happens with that metadata. So here, these are all photos I took with the drone. So aerial photos, some other types of projects, that's great. I'm going to select all of these and make a few modifications here. So I'll come down to my IPTC, apply that. There we go. So now when I go to export this, you see we've got keywords, we got IPTC metadata. I've got some geolocations of where I actually took the pictures, right? Geotags. When I export, I decide what goes with it. So now in the export dialog, you can choose what stays and what goes. So we'll give that a second to come up here. It's just spinning up my hard drive here because it's pulling pictures from, looks like about 14 folders. And in that dialog, I can decide what's going to be written in the files when we save them. All right, so go ahead, Angela. Let's talk about something related to this or throw in another piece of info while the dialog queues up. And let me see how many other things I got running. Nope, we're good.
So the cool thing, there it goes.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the cool thing is you can choose what parameters, what bits of that information that you want to have exported, you can choose. So if you're interested in privacy and you'd like to keep your information out, you can choose that. Rich is going to show that here in a second, or you can choose to include that information. And we can even show you how that looks inside a file here in a minute.
Yeah. So if you do an unmodified original, well, then you can't strip out the metadata because that would be changing the unmodified, that would be modifying the original. So, but you can click on these here and choose different file types. Okay, JPEG, PNG, TIFF. By the way, I'll tell you guys, we're going to be adding 16-bit export real soon here, which I'm excited about. So Mylio's had an under the hood upgrade so that all the raw engine stuff can do that. So if you're working with raw files, which are usually 10, 12, or 14-bit, you will be able to do 16-bit exports here really soon. You can assign the resolution. So this is the size, right? So let's say I was making these for the internet. Well, when I make the TIFFs and I say, oh, go ahead and put those out at original resolution at max quality, I probably want to include all the metadata because I'm giving these to a client or a printer. So I can say, oh, include the IPTC, include the copyright info, but don't include my ratings. They don't need my keywords. That's how I organize things, right? I don't want them to get some random comment or keyword in there. They don't need to know what camera I shot on, you know, for those people who are obsessed on that, but you can decide what's there. And then when you export, that information is included. But let's say I'm posting to social media. Well, I may be willing to say, you know what, I want to include some of this stuff. So I do want my copyright, but I definitely don't want my face tags. And, you know, I don't need to share the geodata, or maybe I want to. Maybe I want people to know where I took these pictures, and I don't mind if they go take pictures there. You know, I'm sure you've been on the internet and you see an amazing photo. And it's like, wow, where was that taken? And some photographers are like, hey, that's cool. This is where I went. You too could hike up this mountain for 6 miles at 3 in the morning to get this beautiful sunset. And you too could have this picture, or you could just look at mine. You know, like just knowing where a picture was taken doesn't mean you're going to get the same picture. You know, and if you don't want people like, oh, well, you know, look at that piece of equipment, then you turn off your camera exit and nobody knows how you shot this. So if you don't want to hear from someone about how this one time you took this amazing picture on an iPhone that you shared, and now all they're talking about is how, well, you know, if you had this, that would have been better, you turn that off. So you decide what information is included when you export, and it'll tell you. You also can apply a watermark, by the way. That allows you to put it on the image itself. Real soon here, not only will we have text, but we're just about done with the graphic watermarks. So you'll be able to see overlays. So if you want to put your logo on your picture or anything like that, you'll be able to put it over the picture with a just simple watermark logo. So it's just some cool things. And when you save them, it's going to write them out. So tell it where to go. Tell it if you want to rename it, you can give it a custom name or anything else. And there's even clues in here, like how to have it adjust. So there's all these cool shortcuts in here. If you want to do things like include date and timestamps on your export. Who knew that was all down there? When you choose custom, you could do all these cool timestamps. So other ones will let you do some of these, like Bridge has some cool renames, but there's all sorts of things in here. So you could put a time counter on your picture or have the file names named by year. So like, let's say you did a big family picture organization and you had all that metadata in there. So I think, Mark, if he's still here, yeah, he is, you brought this up like, wow, it's really annoying. I don't know when these pictures were there. Mylio, even if you didn't have the sidecar information, could have done a batch export and applied all the date and timestamps to the actual file names, making it a little bit easier to get that info. So you can include this info or not. So I know that's really nerdy, and now we can go on to some stuff that's fun, but I'm hoping that this was helpful, that you guys now understand a little bit more about how you can put your information into photos and then decide when you have it there and when it goes away. So we open up for questions, or is there anything else that I didn't cover that you guys wanted to see related to this before we just go on to other fun topics for the last bit of the coffee break?
Well, JC just sent me the search for how to find all of your images that don't have copyright information on them. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat. If anybody wants to give it a try, just go to your all photos view or narrow it down by a folder or an album and type.
Let me test that first. 1 second.
I just did it. It seemed to work.
Okay. I'm smarter than I thought. Great.
Did you share that with everyone? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
So if I translate engineer, this means does not have copyright. And what does the asterisk mean?
The asterisk means anything. So basically what we're asking Mylio is to not show any photos where the copyright has something in it, which is the opposite of photos that have something in the copyright. So because we're asking it not to show anything where there is text in the copyright, it'll show us all the photos that do not have something in the copyright. So the star is a wildcard for any character in the copyright field. And then the minus is
so about half of my photo library doesn't have copyright information. So that'll make it easier to tag the ones that need it. So there you go. So Fran, to your question earlier about like finding things like this, Mylio has all of these incredible search tools, but not all of us have friends like JC who we could say, hey, nerd, could you please do this for us? And I'm teasing JC because he knows that I respect him immensely, but I would have never come up with that. I don't think that way. I think visually, and he understands the under the hood stuff. So, but I just asked, okay, minus copyright and then star as a wild card. Okay, cool. But Angela, you have a whole chapter on search terms like this too, right? And you can add this one to it.
I do. And we have probably the building blocks in there for this, but this specific search is not in there. So
I bet it will be now.
Yeah, it needs to be.
And also the good news is that I'm actually everybody's friend. So you can just email us at support and we can help you with those.
That is true.
Obscure terms.
Yes, that is true. Since JC is our advocate for customer success, also known as support.
I have a search question, especially since JC is here. I have not found an easy way, since you don't display albums on the right side on the info screen that a photo's in. I have not found an easy way to find out what album a picture is in. Now, luckily, my background is I'm a programmer, so I'm using SQL to do it. But I'm a little concerned that eventually, since you're enhancing search capabilities for non-techies, that you're going to take away the SQL capability in the console.
Nope, we'll keep both because we have that sort of thing. But so I'll give you the longer answer as to why that is. So remember earlier we were talking about how there is, the reject flags that Lightroom has don't get written into the metadata. Well,
Correct.
album membership isn't really a IPTC standard. So we have to come up with a fake field to hold that information. And so it is something that we've talked about doing. We figured out how to do it. It's just a matter of getting it done and everything else. So album membership will probably come soon, but we're doing all sorts of things with albums for next year. So the likelihood of that getting solved is relatively high. JC, I know there's a way to see what folders stuff is in. Is there a way to see what album something is in?
I just
Yeah,
displayed
just
it.
with a SQL command.
Okay.
I just put it on the screen. You
There you
highlight
go.
the picture, go to the console and put that in, and it'll tell you all the albums that picture's in.
Cool. And let me show you something about the console, because you guys might go like, okay, that thing's scary. So the console is a little scary, but it doesn't have to be, because you can adjust the size of it here to little mini console. And so if I take his thing here, so let me select let me go to an album here for a second and choose something that I know is in an album and make you look at cute baby pictures from a long time ago. There we go. All right. Cute baby pictures make every demo better. So we can copy that and paste. So you don't have to type all that, right? And so this is in an album called Parents Frames. Well, let's say later I want to use that command again. You can just click in this field, and if you use the up or down arrow, you could step through recent commands that you've run, so you don't have to keep going and finding them. So you could just find something you need and rerun it very quickly. So
You can also type in clear to clean up the mess.
yes. So yes, we'll keep making that better and better and better. But Mylio has some of the most amazing search tools on the planet. The number of things you could search for in Mylio compared to other apps is insane. I'm sure Angela's showed you, the ability to search with OCR. I mean, I just love that, I can go in and find all sorts of stuff. Like I found pictures that I tagged with photos of prints. I found, some things here. I found a sign that had that word, Prince William Forest, that it's able to read that, right? It's just insane. People I tagged. And then that was a generic search. You could have said, look for just text with Prince or people with that in the name. So it gets really good that you can find those sorts of things. And by the way, you're like, wait, how did this get in there? And I don't agree with that logic, Twitter. That's completely wrong. One of the cool things you could do if you're using Mylio as a mobile app on your phone is we have something called an inbox. And so your inbox is hidden by default, although it won't be after this next update, I believe, the next real big update coming. But the inbox is in your Mylio library. Now you have one normal one in your Mylio library. I made another one on my main storage drive that I can send things to. And what's kind of cool about this is you could be doing something that you want to save in Mylio. So let me just share my phone really quick. There we go. So let's say I wanted, this is one of my bad habits of collecting digital Star Wars cards, but let's say I wanted to save these and put them into my Mylio album. So there's something I came across that I really liked, and I said, I want to keep that. Well, what happens is whether it's a screenshot or anything else, you could do that. So let's just go in here. And if I'm viewing something, when I take a screenshot or anything else, you can actually save it. So you just say on your phone, if you press both buttons, you could take a screenshot. Well, when you do that, you've got a share button, and you can actually share that right into your Mylio Photos inbox. And it puts it in there. You could have gotten a text message from your mom who sent you a picture. And, maybe there's something you wanted to grab out of there. She sent a picture recently to you from when you had lunch together the other day. Tap and open it. That's cool. Share. And just put it into your Mylio inbox. And so you can actually just do that. Boom, copying to Mylio. Now, when I go to Mylio on any of my devices, and I go to that folder, it's going to be there right inside my inbox, waiting to organize. So there you see, they both came right in. So that's really kind of a cool little trick of getting things into Mylio when you're in other apps. you've also probably figured out that, you know, the Mylio share menu when you're in Mylio goes the other direction too. So that allows you to very easily, you know, select something that you want to share, tap the share button, and you get the same sort of menu, allowing you to go to all sorts of other things like printing, Dropbox, attached to an email, you name it, you know, almost everything else works that way. Or there's your open in, and you can again choose to send that to another list of applications or even customize. So there is every single app on my phone that can open a JPEG. So Mylio plays well with all these other apps when you use that share menu, which is kind of cool. And as you're doing this, if you've added metadata or other things in, you know, that'll carry with the files as well. So cool. So
I use that
about,
inbox all the time, Rich.
Yeah.
You know, I have family all over the world, and we have a WhatsApp group where people share photos, and all I have to do is just tap the photo and hit share, and that photo is never lost.
Yeah, that's a great feature. So I think you guys will love that one. I have to apologize, Angela. I have to leave in about 2 minutes. So if I can answer anybody else's questions, then, you know, between you and JC, I think it should be a free day of, as long as you guys are willing to stay, you could probably belt out a few great questions. So, but if there's anything I need to answer, let me know.
Looks like Fran's got
Yes, I have a question for Rich.
Mhm.
Rich, you have shared a number of times about your whole paranoia about losing photos and stuff, and how you are continually backing up and stuff. And I look at all of that, and I am in awe. And I've recently invested in a desktop, and I'm trying to set things up so that you know, I can back up from wherever I am in Australia.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering, have you written anything describing the process of getting yourself organized, or would you sometime do a do a thing to go the step by step?
I've done a couple of webinars on it. I have not written all these things down, but there's a good website called DP Best Flow. It's not Mylio specific, but it's by the American Society of Media Photographers, and it's all DP as in digital photography, best, BEST, flow,
DP. Say that
FLOW.
again.
Yeah.
Yep,
DP.
I'll get it for you.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks,
dpbestflow.org. They've got a
Okay.
ton of articles up there about organizing and metadata and a lot of stuff, because it was written mostly by Peter Krogh, but I was a contributor to the site about how to add metadata and organize video files, Mark, of all things we were talking about. And that's why I was trying to nicely say, yeah, Lightroom really foo-bars that thing up. That's why I use Bridge, by the way. Before I had Mylio, I was like, I don't use Lightroom because I like Bridge. It does it the right way. But I have a lot of articles on there, Fran. I have done a couple of external webinars where I talk about the storage workflows. The short version is, once you're in Mylio, you know, be sure to add some vaults, and vaults could just be hard drives. And these are really easy, and you don't have to have these you could have these at a different location. So if you have a office, you could plug one in there, or if you want, you can unplug one and, you know, put it in a different place and then periodically bring it back and plug it in. And then to the cloud, I don't put everything, but you can actually create rules of what gets stored in a place under device quality. So you could say, oh, I want all my 5-star photos to go to the cloud. So that way you're only backing up your best pictures and you don't have to pay for the whole cloud library. Or I want my 5 stars with a red tag to go to the cloud. So we're going to keep making this area more useful and easier, but there's some great stuff on the owner's manual about how to go in and tweak these settings for backup. And then, because I am paranoid, and I'm very happy that Mylio is making 1, 2, 3, 4 backup copies for me. I also have Backblaze running, sending everything to the cloud for $7 a month. But that is slow. If I had to do a restore, it would take about 60 days. But it's everything. But that's 11 terabytes of data. So at $7 a month for 11 terabytes of cloud storage, I can accept that it'll take me 60 days to restore, because that would take me a lot longer if I had to go back and shoot 37 years of photography. So I consider that a reasonable price to pay. But those are a couple of the things there that might help you. And I'm sure we can go a little bit deeper about storage and workflow. And I think JC has a couple of great ones about vaults and protection. He's got some recorded videos and webinars on our site. So that should help you out too.
Thanks. I think that'll help a lot. There's a couple of other issues that I've got seems like some spurious gigabytes being saved from Mylio, which I'll ask in a different session, or I'll ask Angela.
Yeah.
But there's that, but there's also now I've forgotten it. See, it's
That's
too
okay.
early in the morning.
It's
to try and
okay.
leave it.
I know the feeling. So what I will say there, and I'll let them go deeper, but Mylio does have commands to clean up caches. So sometimes if you've got a drive where it's in auto optimized mode, that's where it like goes, oh, I've got free space. You're working with these files, and it puts it on there. And those accumulate over time. You could purge those and clean them up very quickly and easily. And that part is fine. But remember, Mylio has 3 pictures for every picture, sometimes 4. One is the tiny little thumbnail that you see when you're browsing on your device. So even if the drive is offline, you can still see it. The next one is the smart preview, which is a super small raw file that's editable. That's about 5% the size of the original. So that's what I have on my phone and my tablet and my laptop are smart previews. So I can have my 11 terabyte photo library shrunk down to about 400 gigabytes if I had it all on my tablet like I do. Then you have your originals. Plus, if you've sent Mylio to an external editor, or you've edited in Lightroom or Photos for Mac OS, we put a display file there, which is the one that has your external edits. And you have your sidecar. So every file could have 5 files, but those other files are typically pretty small, but they do cumulatively add up. You know, it's not just the original files, because you've got your preview and you've got the information and the metadata and stuff. I do have to run, but you guys are in great hands here. When I don't know something, I ask JC or Angela. So they are the people that I ask my questions of. So I'm going to let them answer the rest of them for you. Thank you guys for having me today.
Thanks for being
Thanks,
here, Rich.
Rich.
Really appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
All right. Well, if anybody else has any other questions, JC and I are here to help. Is there anything else you guys would like to cover?
Well, there's one. I'll bring it up, and I can also send you what I've written. But Rich was alluding to this about the cache and clearing the cache thing. And this is a couple of months ago. I went to clear the cache, and what comes up is a little dialog box, and it has 2 things checked on it. And one is to clear the previews, and one to clear the originals. And both of those are selected. Now, in my ignorance, I went ahead and said, okay, and it deleted all of my photos, the whole 63,000 photos that I had. Fortunately, I had a complete backup from earlier in the morning, so I was able to restore it. And so one of the things is that seems like a very dangerous kind of thing to present to somebody, and that it'd be better to have a bit more explanation about it, or to that come up not selected, it just selected the previews or something. And that's from my laptop, which is where, I do most of my stuff. When I checked it on the desktop, that doesn't come up like the same thing. It says there's no cache to clear. So that's troubled me a lot, that particular dialogue, and the danger of deleting all your originals.
Well, I bet that was scary, and I'm sorry that you went through that. But the cache is really a device-specific thing. When you think of Mylio, don't think of it as a single entity. Think of it as a distributed system. So even though on this device, my laptop, I'm clearing the originals, Mylio is still aware that those originals exist somewhere else, for example, on my external hard drive or on my desktop computer. So when you clear the cache, Mylio is only telling you what on that device can be deleted because it exists elsewhere.
Okay, but then there's a clash, because I work with Lightroom and Photoshop and all the rest of those. So I'm working with those originals through those programs, and yet Mylio is giving me the option to delete them without me realizing the consequences of such an action.
Yeah. And in that case, what you want to do is you want any device where you expect to work with a third-party application on a consistent basis. Like, let's say your desktop computer is the one where you work in Lightroom all the time. Set that device as a vault, or at least set the folders that you want to maintain locally on that device to one originals. That way, when you clear the cache, Mylio won't consider those files to be purgeable because they're used by another application. Yeah.
One of the
challenges, one of the challenges with Mylio is that it's so flexible and it lets you do so much that it's easy to kind of lose track, and like the advantage is you can set it to do exactly what you want, but it makes it complicated if what you want to do is something simple, like keep all the photos in my computer all the time.
But to clear out stuff that you really don't need, like the previews or a cache or whatever it is that just grows and grows and grows, which is one of the issues. But I have to go back and just check all of those because it seems to change a bit. But I know I've got one directory somewhere where it's got 32 gigabytes of data, and I have got a clue as to why it's there. So that needs more investigation on my part to see where that's coming from.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody.
I'm sorry, Angela, can I mention something? Mark, some of the SQL commands that you're running on the console, you can actually run them on the search field. You don't have
really?
Yeah.
They're a little easier to read in the console, though.
They are a lot easier. Well, you have a lot more space.
Yeah.
But some of the simpler ones, you don't have to go through the trouble of opening the console and clearing. Sometimes there's a lot of messages happening in the console. So
I'm a programmer. That's my day job. So I've already been into the SQLite database, and you probably don't want to hear that anyway.
We keep the system very open intentionally.
Yeah, let me ask you one question. I asked this, I think, before you got on the call of Rich. Do you have any suggestion for how to export video? Well, I don't know if export's the right word. How to somehow set up my videos that are in Lightroom so that when I bring them Mylio, I can get them back where they belong, because videos don't have EXIF data. I need to explain that a little further. What I do is a lot of collections in Lightroom. In fact, most of my library of 100,000 pictures are in various collections, about 287 collections. And of course, they're within collection sets. So what I've done is I've keyworded everything such that I know how to get it back when I get into Mylio. So I hand typed in the 287 folders in Mylio. Right. And then when I come across, I do a search by keyword and then drop them into that folder. The problem is videos don't have EXIF data. And I have 6,619 videos that are floating around in Never Never Land because Adobe, I'll just stop there.
But can you ask Lightroom to write an XMP file for your videos?
It doesn't seem to do it. I've highlighted all my videos. I actually have a smart album of these videos, hoping I could do that. It doesn't seem to do it, or the data's not in it. I don't know which, but it doesn't. When I come across, it's not there. And there's so many people using mobile phones now as their primary camera. My family's just keeps inundating me with these video files, and the new ones that are coming into Mylio, I got those under control. It's these 6,619 that are still sitting in Lightroom, and I'm getting away with it for now because my Lightroom contract doesn't end until March. I have an annual contract, so I'm on borrowed time. A lot of borrowed time, but I'm on borrowed time.
Yeah, no, I mean, take this in the spirit in which I'm saying it. This is a problem in the Lightroom side, not in the Mylio side, right?
No, I understand.
We need to create that XMP. I'm trying to think of how to do it. Do you use 1-star ratings for anything else?
I actually don't use star
Well,
ratings.
no, those are not going to get written to the
No, they don't come through.
video files either.
No, nothing. Video files are a whole new beast, and
Yeah. That's the
Lightroom has
challenge.
attempted to support them, but man, hand sorting 6,619 videos is, and I don't always know where they come from. So I have to keep Lightroom open,
Right.
Mylio open, and one at a time go through them. Okay, where was this
Can
one?
you perhaps add something to the name of the files that includes the collection, and then use a SQL command in Mylio to
Yeah, I could do that, but then in Lightroom, I've got to go through 6,619 and name them manually.
Yeah, I keep forgetting how manual everything is.
Yeah, Lightroom is a great dam, but it doesn't want you to leave. They want you married to it.
Yeah, and it's not like those collections are only in their proprietary catalog.
Yes.
They're not.
Yeah. And even before I knew about you guys, I've been in this business a lot of years, but I hadn't heard about Mylio until fairly recently.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to use the migration tool to go from Lightroom to On1, and it couldn't deal with it either, even with the migration tool. The videos all got lost. And not to mention the other problems I ran into with On1 that are worse than Lightroom. Luckily, I found Mylio, and I absolutely love Mylio, but and I love not having my stuff in the cloud, but I've got 6,619 videos that are killing me.
So I've just asked one of our data engineers, Aaron, to join the call.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
He's a heavy Lightroom user.
Okay.
If anyone can come up with a workaround, it's going to be him.
Okay.
I'm not holding my breath, but he's going to join the call.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rich is going to look into it as well. He's pretty savvy with everything Adobe, so we'll see what we can do. There's got to be a workaround somewhere.
Yeah, I'm frankly a little surprised this hasn't come up before. I'm not the only one that has a family full of mobile phones.
I'll tell you a different cool trick that you can do with videos on Mylio. So you know how you can create an underscore display image?
Yes.
And Mylio will stack it?
Yep.
If you do that with a video, Mylio will stack it too. So you can create a slower resolution version of a video and then sync that to your mobile device.
That is cool. That is neat.
Yeah.
When I get my videos organized, I'll look forward to that.
Aaron, Mark here has quite a few videos in Lightroom that he's organized into collections. And he's trying to migrate away from Lightroom. And what he's done with most of his collections is keyword them so that then he can find them in Mylio and then organize them either by folders or albums. I'm not exactly sure how he's doing it.
Yeah.
The challenge is that with videos, there's no EXIF data, and Lightroom won't create an XMP for videos. So any thoughts on how he could capture the collection of videos that's in Lightroom so he can transition it to Mylio?
Let's see. Well, I assume it's more than just a couple videos. That's probably the problem.
Yeah.
6,619.
So doing it individually would be a challenge.
No. Well, actually, I may have to. I mean, I'm starting to resign myself to that, but I'm hoping not.
Let me go find a video inside my library. Take a look at it. I very, very rarely shoot video.
Yeah, same here. Unless I'm intentionally shooting video.
Me
And then
neither.
when I do shoot video, I hit the play button in Lightroom and I watch it play like every 10th frame and be all like jumpy. And then I say, okay, I'll go watch this in something else.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Yeah,
I don't shoot any video. I've got a very large format camera, and all I shoot is still, but I got a whole family full of iPhone users.
Yeah.
And I'm the family librarian.
No, I understand. I started adding a GoPro camera to my, so I do underwater photography, and I added a GoPro camera that sits on top of my underwater photo rig, and because I had FOMO, I was like, sometimes I miss the shot, so I'm just gonna have this camera running all the time. Do you think I've looked at any of the videos? They're just sitting there taking space.
It's not bad in Mylio. They're very easy to handle. They're no different than a photograph. But trying to get out of Lightroom, this has really become a stumbling block for me. I mean, there's the only reason Lightroom's still on this computer, making me go in slow motion every time I power it up. And I have a really powerful computer. I've got a brand new Mac M1 Pro Max with 32 cores, 64 gigs, and 4 terabytes of SSD.
I'm officially envious.
So something else I'll mention when you were talking about vaults to the lady from Australia, one of my vaults is a Samsung T7. And when I go somewhere, I'll just unplug it and put it in my pocket and take it with me. I mean, you're really safe then. So,
if there's other questions while Aaron is contemplating a solution.
Well, I'm trying to figure out where a video even is. My Lightroom.
Yeah, I have a ton of videos in like my iPhoto library that I take with my phone, but my Lightroom library is mostly exclusively stuff for my DSLR, and I don't shoot video with my mirrorless or DSLR. So
yeah,
there's hardly any videos in there. Usually if there's a video, it's because I got there on accident.
I wish I didn't. Yeah, I can't figure out what to do with these things. And, you know, the catalog is so locked up in Adobe, you can't even do any kind of a dump to say this video name belongs here. They just lock it all up. I mean, so even doing it manually is a nightmare. I have to have both Lightroom open and Mylio open at the same time. And I can't use Lightroom Classic because it doesn't display the album either. I have to use regular Lightroom because if you open the info panel, it shows the albums. And then it's just one at a time, step through them. I've looked at how to do it longhand because I had a feeling this is where I was going to end up.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's something in terms of export where you could export with a custom file name that references the album that it's in, and then you can use that to search in Mylio. You don't have a bunch of duplicates.
Can you export the video in its original format with a new name?
I don't know. I'm going to my videos right now. I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't think about using the rename as a possibility to add the album to it.
I mean, exporting 6,600 videos is going to take a while, but it's going to be faster than renaming them by hand.
Yeah, it's way faster.
Yeah.
Okay, I can have file names, custom.
Put that fancy computer to work, man.
Yeah, make it sweat a little bit. Image name, metadata. Let's see if it's here. Oh, album is not what they consider metadata, which makes sense because it isn't. But
I was wondering about that. It was just kind of a one-off idea here that I was wondering
great
about.
idea though, but no, that won't work. That's a bummer. That was a great idea.
You could select all the videos inside your collection and then just rename all of the files. So you can rename the files inside of Lightroom in bulk. So you could just rename all the files to be like original file name and then like collection dash file name. And then when you're in Mylio, you can just search for collection dash and you should be able to find all those files without going through the full export.
Yeah, collections are hidden just like albums are hidden. I mean, it's the same thing. And so you go to the rename thing. Well, even if I rename without export, if I just go up to the file rename, hit F2, and hit edit. Yeah, see, under metadata, album doesn't exist, and neither does collection.
Well, if you go to the file name and you go to change it to like custom name dash sequence, you could give it a custom name and sequence and just rename the files.
Oh, you missed part of the story. I've got 6,600 videos spread out across about 280 albums.
But I think
So
what
this-
Aaron
yeah,
is
this-
saying is you can select multiple.
Yeah.
Right. So if I, these are pictures, so it's not gonna,
Could do,
I can
I mean,
try
you have
this,
to do
but I don't
the
have any
rename
collections in Lightroom.
280 times for each of those albums or collections. But that's
Yeah.
better than 6,600 times.
That's true. That's true.
yes, if you were to come in and select a range, and then over here on the right where we've got file name, come up here and change it to custom name sequence or custom name original file number, and then call it, you know, whatever you want.
Whatever album it's in. Yeah.
Hit
I get
OK,
it. I get it.
and that would bring it down to 280. But
Which is a whole lot better than 6,600. Good idea. I
A
don't
little
love
less
it.
work.
I don't love it, but I like it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
That's a whole lot less effort than what I've got otherwise. Anyway, I mentioned that I only shoot stills. That background photo is out my back door in Dominican Republic. I have a house in Dominican Republic that I'm getting ready to retire to.
Oh,
And
wow.
I bought a brand new Sony A7R4 because I couldn't get big enough images to do wall murals, and I'm getting a lot of requests for them. So I end up with these huge files, but I got a huge computer with a lot of speed. Well, with Mylio, I got speed. With Lightroom, I'm even slower now. So,
Mark, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, so
oh,
Next
next
door
door
to where
neighbor.
yeah,
Yeah, next door neighbor.
absolutely.
The better side. The Haiti side's not so popular.
Agree.
So
That one's
anyway.
tough.
No, I love it down there. The reason we didn't look at Puerto Rico is because we already knew the area. I wanted Caribbean on one side and Atlantic on the other. So it was pretty much given what islands I could pick from. The reason I picked Dominican Republic is because I wanted a second passport. It had to be a country that allows it because I didn't want to give up my US passport because I'll be on Social Security when I get older. So I wanted the best of both worlds. So no, I love it down there.
That's cool.
I'll have to come visit you so I can go take dive pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that picture in my background, that picture is 60 megapixel and about 117 meg. Well, not that particular one. It was shrunk for that use, but
Yeah.
it's 117 megabyte. That's what the camera actually shoots natively, and I love it. But they are slow to edit.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, they're a handful. Well, as I'm shifting off of Lightroom, I'm using Luminar for the light duty stuff, and well, as I'm shifting off of Lightroom, I'm using Mylio's editor for the light duty stuff, Luminar for the medium duty, in particular when they need to deal with skies and subject selection, because although Lightroom thinks they have masks, they suck. They're not very good at it. And then when I do have to do heavy duty editing, I go over to On1. So I have a copy of On1, but I don't keep any data inside it. And I don't keep data inside Luminar either. Well, I keep the catalog there because we don't have a way of exporting to a smart object, directly out of Mylio. So I keep the cataloged ARW in Luminar, but the resolved image in Mylio. So it works out neat. So when I go to edit it again, it just picks up out of the catalog, out of Luminar, and continues on. So I basically jerry-rigged my way around non-destructive editing.
It's pretty cool, right? I've been doing the same thing with Luminar.
Yeah, it's neat.
Mark, if you haven't spent any time in our support forum, you should check it out. I think you'll be popular.
Okay.
lot of like-minded individuals that
Okay.
approach work in a similar way to you.
Yeah, the first thing I did when I got Mylio is I figured before I put pictures into it, I said, I put one in it. So what are the underpinnings? Because I don't want to get into another Lightroom catalog situation. And I found that SQLite database, and I just got this big grin on my face. I said, here we go. So I still don't understand, as many years as I've been in programming and in systems, I still don't understand how you get these devices talking to each other without going on a cloud, but a black box is fine as long as a black box works.
We got to have some secret sauce.
Well, from down in Puerto Rico or anywhere, when you get outside America, internet isn't exactly ideal.
Yeah.
And when you're shooting 117 megabyte pictures and you go shooting all day, you come home, you start uploading them to the cloud and then back down into your remote devices. You're not done by morning when you have to go shooting again. That's a problem. That's a major problem.
A lot of my vacations are spent inside boats that don't have an internet connection.
Yep.
And I'm already carrying a lot of camera and scuba gear. The last thing I want to do is take a heavy laptop. So
yeah,
with Mylio, I can just use an iPad.
Yeah, well, that's what I was doing till I got this new notebook. I was using an iPad, but again, I had to get things up into the cloud and back down because my backup device in a Lightroom environment is backing up Lightroom Classic. And then you have to remember not to send your videos up to Classic. You have to send them up to regular Lightroom because Classic videos don't go to the cloud because they have a smarter idea, apparently, or so they think. So I'm not exactly a fanboy of Adobe anymore. It's a necessary evil right now. I've learned to get around everything except these videos, and we sort of have a shortcut out of it, but it's gone by the wayside quickly.
I love to edit with Adobe tools, but I never understood their organization and how they go about managing files. As a matter of fact, the way I found out about Mylio, I was a Mylio user way before I was a Mylio employee. The CEO of the company was my client at my previous job, and I was showing him some of my underwater photos, and he's like, hey, you should try Mylio. And I was still holding on to Aperture at the time.
Geez.
So I kept a laptop that could still run Aperture so that I would access those photos. And that's how I found out about Mylio. I never made the move to Lightroom. So I went from Aperture to Mylio, and it worked really well.
Yeah. Even the editing tools, Lightroom is pretty weak for editing, and the masks features is virtually useless. I mean, unless your picture is, extremely high contrast where it can figure out what to mask, it doesn't do it anywhere near as well as Luminar. And Photoshop is just flat too much work. It's just flat too much work, but I want
you
layers.
You can get lost. You can spend hours.
Yeah, I've learned to use it, but it's too fat. And Luminar will do pretty much anything Photoshop will do, and what it won't do, On1 will do. So, and as long as you keep your underscore display name with a prefix of On1 or Neo or whatever else, where it came from, so you know where to go back to if you need to edit, re-edit. So that's all I've done is I've jerry-rigged my file names to include a couple letters for which was the editor on this one, and then display version.
So Mark, does that mean that your file names get longer and longer as you process in these different programs?
They do. My file names are already long. My file names are my first initial, last name, underscore, date, fully written out, 2022-08-04, underscore, and a sequence number. And then the sequence numbers in Lightroom are by year. But Mylio doesn't renumber that way. It renumbers by day. So as of yet, I haven't renumbered the Mylio way. I will, but not till I get this video issue solved. Because otherwise I won't be able to match up my file names to figure out what goes where.
Yeah.
So, but I will eventually renumber, and then I'm going to actually write a script that'll turn around, and anytime I bring in photos, it'll renumber that day automatically. So.
All right. Are there any other questions before we wrap up for today? I know we went a little bit long, but thank you everyone for sticking it out with us, and especially JC and Aaron for joining in and helping out. Is there anything else that you guys want to cover before we sign off for the day? All right. Well,
thank you for
so
sticking
much.
around. Yeah, thank you for sticking around, guys. I appreciate it. And I did get a good answer, so I'm ready to fly.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good.
Excellent.
Well, we'll be
Thanks.
back with you next week. Our coffee break topic next week is going to be faster sync and backup techniques. So hopefully you can join us. The event has been listed in the community, and if you can't make it, it will be recorded. So yeah, let us know what else you guys want to learn, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks,
Bye.
Angela.
Bye.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Bye, everyone.